Welcome to the Jeff Fitzgerald pregame show brought to you by Custom Carpet. Coach, taking a quick look back last week, that Ruston game, that's the first overtime game you've had this year, and man, what a final 4 minutes that game was.
It was. I mean, looking back at it, we played an incredible first half of football, about as well as we could play, and offensively, defensively, did a really good job special teams, and went into half feeling good about it, but also knowing that Coach Laird was going to challenge his team, knowing that they're going to get the ball the first half, or the first drive of the second half, and it was going to be a battle, and it was. I mean, it was a heavyweight slugfest, and it was really a fun game. It was, you coach for those games like that, because if every one of them was just a blowout, or
right.
every one of them was either way, win or lose blowout, then it's just not as much fun, not as much adrenaline, not as much everything flowing as it is in those type of games. And unfortunately, we came out on the bottom part of it. And the thing is, one play either way, whether we make the first down offensively or we make the first down, or we make the stop on that fourth down defensively, man, we're one play away from feeling just as good as we feel bad, just as it being just as intense the other direction. So it was a hard-fought game, and it was a crazy fourth quarter for sure.
One of the things that we've noticed is halftime adjustments. You always have to compensate and get ready for that. Ruston did come out and they scored on their first drive, but the thing that showed some maturity on Ouachita's part is maybe some of the earlier games they were not able to do this, but they came right back, marched right back down there and put that touchdown on the board and kept that 2-score lead. And to me, and it took, I believe that was where you converted on fourth down on one of those. I mean, it was one of those where it was a key drive. It
was a key drive. I think we scored on fourth down, actually. Devion ended up, it was a read play, and he ended up pulling it and scoring out the back door. And it was a huge drive. I want to say that was a 13-play drive. And so we were able to do a lot of really, really good things. We had looking back, I think we had a 12-play drive, a 13-play drive, and then we started with a long field almost every time.
Right.
And so, we may not have had the amount of plays, but every drive went 80-plus yards. And so that was huge for us offensively.
Going back to the first half, your defense held Ruston to 22 yards total offense in that first half. That is one of the best shutouts I've seen this year and a half.
It was. Our kids were playing hard. And
they scored only on the 15-yard turnover.
They did. I think that was our only mistake of the first half. And it was a huge mistake. Looking back, you could say, well, that maybe cost us the game. But at the same time, we still could have held them out.
Right.
And they didn't do anything different on that drive than they did any of the others. It's just one guy out of position. They make a play. We didn't. And unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes. And they're a well-coached football team, and they're a dang good football team. They find a way to win.
Right.
And my hat's off to those guys. They really do a great job of getting their kids motivated and finding a way to win.
Well, that one's in the history books, but Pineville is not. We'll come back and take a look at Pineville. You're tuned in to the Jeff Fitzgerald pregame show brought to you by 3B Equipment. Welcome back to the Jeff Fitzgerald pregame show brought to you by Planet Fitness. Coach, hard to believe it's the last regular season game, and you have to travel on the road to Pineville. You traveled last week, got to travel this week. Let's first of all look at the Pineville Rebels and tell us what you know so far about them.
Well, defensively, they're just like they were last year. They're basically a 50 defense, 3-4 style of play. They're not a pressure. They haven't been a pressure. I'm not going to say they're not, because we do feel like they'll bring some pressure, but they haven't been known to be a pressure-based defense this year. They've been playing a lot of just base defense, where they'll line up, read their keys, play some zone coverage, rather than rolling down in man and bringing pressure. But we feel like possibly we could get some pressure. People have had a little bit more success defensively against us when they've brought pressure. Mm-hmm. So we feel, we're prepared for it. We feel like we may see it, but they haven't traditionally been that type of defense. They've been more of a 50, 3-4 zone coverage type defense. And then offensively, they've changed their style of play completely from the past 3 years. And they've gone to a spread attack. They'll give you some formations that look a lot like us, with a tight end, H-back, running inside zone and outside zone, a little bit of counter, and then they're throwing it all over the place. They're really more of a passing team this year than they have been in the past, much more of a passing team.
Looking at the statistics, it's those three Bs, the quarterback Bates, the running back Blackwell, and the receiver Brown. They seem to have the majority of the yards. And do they tell us, do they prefer to run to set up the pass, or do they want to throw first?
Nah, they're a throw first team.
Okay.
And actually there's only been one game where they didn't throw first, and that's been against Ruston a couple of weeks ago. They lined up in the eye and looked like old Pineville, and running some veer and some power and some counter, and then we're not real sure why they did that, other than they did it, and that's been the one game where they've gone away from who they've shown to be this year. But they do a great job of throwing and catching, and I believe they throw the ball to set up their run.
Looking at special teams last week, it was much better for the Lions as far as in the punting area. All 4 extra points, kept you in the game for an overtime situation. How was Pineville with special teams?
Pineville's very good on special teams. They don't hurt themselves with their special teams play, and I think a lot of times that's what teams try to do, is just to make sure that special teams play is not the part that hurts you.
Right.
We try that, even though sometimes it happens, and it happens to everyone. But they're very sound in their special teams play.
What is it about Ruston and Pineville that, regardless of the record, whenever you travel to them, it doesn't matter, they're going to play you tough? What is it about those teams, specifically Pineville, since that's where we are tonight?
It feels like everybody wants a piece of the Lions, I guess. I don't know. It feels that everybody wants a piece of us, but I don't know. We seem to always get a great game out of them down there, and they do play well at home. That's, it's not just us, but they do play well at home. They play everybody well at home. West Monroe last week, they had them at home, and West Monroe wasn't able to, they kept their starters in the whole game, and it was a relatively close ball game the whole time. Same way with Ruston. They're playing decent football. They just haven't been able to find a way to get on top of it. They're a good team. Their record has definitely not show the type of team that they are.
Well, normally we don't talk about this going into Game 10, but win, lose, or draw, your Lion team is in the playoffs. Let's talk about those scenarios real quick.
Well, with a win tonight, we feel like that would bump us up a little bit, depending on who else wins, or how our opponents play out, and then how the other 5A teams perform. If somebody unexpectedly loses, then that's going to bump people up and bump them down. So it's just really just kind of a crapshoot there, not knowing exactly how it's going to play out. But we anticipate with a win, and depending on how things play out there with some of the other districts, that we could possibly be as high as 14 with a home playoff game. And then with a win, for sure on the road, top 18,
right,
somewhere in there. So 14 to 18 with a win, and then obviously we're not going to talk about the other part, but we're in the playoffs regardless. Worst case scenario, mid-20s.
Okay.
Worst case scenario. So.
Well, it all starts tonight, and it will finish tonight as far as regular season goes. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
You have been tuned in to the Jeff Fitzgerald pregame show, brought to you by Chick-fil-A.